The moment after winning felt impossible to hold. Aurora stood in the valley beneath a sky still burning with fireworks, surrounded by the people who had carried her through 4 years of the 12th eclipse. Plum was crying and pretending she wasn't. Ellie had one hand over her mouth, eyes shining. Mira held Aurora so tightly it almost hurt. Pines stood slightly apart, smiling like an old man who had just watched history repeat itself and somehow become better the second time. The announcement still echoed across every communicator. Aurora Reach, champion of the 12th eclipse, winner of 2 planets, leader of Sparkle Doom. Aurora could hear the words. She just couldn't feel them yet. They sounded too large, too heavy, too far away. Then official eclipse transports arrived. Sleek black vessels dropped from the clouds and landed in formation along the valley floor. Their doors opened with ceremonial precision. The announcer's voice carried through the air. The champion and her faction will now be escorted to Earth for the victory ceremony. Aurora turned toward her family, her faction, her people. Plum wiped her eyes. Earth. Ellie breathed out slowly. That just became real. Mira still looked stunned. Pines glanced at Aurora. Ready? Aurora laughed weakly. No. He smiled. Good. Means you're awake. Together they boarded the transport. Nero Vega disappeared behind them. The city that had held them for 4 years shrank beneath the clouds. The arenas, the Reaper headquarters, the rooftops, the places they had laughed, bled, lost, won. All of it slowly became a glowing mark on the world below. Aurora sat by the window and watched until there was nothing left to see but stars. For most of the flight, nobody spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, because there was too much. 4 years had ended in a single moment. Now they were being carried toward whatever came after. Earth waited. The birthplace of the Empire. The old center of power. The stage where Eclipse champions became history. By the time the transport descended, the entire planet seemed awake. Cities glowed beneath them. Broadcast towers projected Aurora's face across the skyline. Ships filled the atmosphere in celebration formations. Crowds flooded streets, plazas, and balconies. The victory ceremony had been prepared with brutal efficiency. Earth knew how to crown a champion. The transport landed beside the Imperial Ceremony Hall, a structure so ancient and massive it made even Nero Vega feel young. Aurora stepped down first. The roar hit her like a wall. Millions, maybe more, cheering, screaming, crying, waving banners, Sparkle Doom banners, Reach banners, Dawnfall banners, and strangely enough, homemade signs with Mira's name on them. Aurora saw one that read, Mira Reach already. Her chest tightened. Mira saw it too. She froze. Aurora squeezed her hand. They walked together. Not as contestants anymore. As survivors. The ceremony platform rose before them, wide enough to hold monarchs, rulers, generals, and heroes. At the center stood the Emperor. The same Emperor who had crowned Kenny decades earlier. The same Emperor who had witnessed Lord Rain's fall. The same Emperor who had watched the galaxy change twice under the shadow of the eclipse. He looked older now. Not weak. Never weak. Just older in the way mountains looked older. Steady, enduring, patient. Aurora climbed the steps. Behind her came Plum, Ellie, Mira, and Pines. Kenny and Celine waited to one side of the platform. Aurora saw them and nearly broke. Celine was already crying. Kenny looked like he was trying not to. Failing. Badly. Aurora wanted to run to them. She couldn't. Not yet. The Emperor stepped forward. The crowd slowly quieted. A silence rolled across Earth. Across every broadcast. Across every watching world. The Emperor raised his hand. Aurora Reach. Her name echoed through the capital. Aurora stepped forward. The Emperor studied her for a moment, then smiled. 400 contestants entered the 12th Eclipse Games. His voice carried effortlessly. 4 years passed. Blood was spilled. Alliances formed. Legends fell. New legends rose. Aurora swallowed. The Emperor continued. And for the first time in recorded Eclipse history, victory was achieved before the final challenge began. The crowd murmured. Not confused, awestruck. Not through betrayal, not through slaughter, not through fear. His eyes moved briefly towards Sparkle Doom, but through loyalty, through trust, through family. Aurora felt tears rising again. The Emperor lifted the ceremonial staff. By authority of the Imperial Crown, by witness of the Empire, and by the laws of the Eclipse Games, he struck the staff once against the platform. The sound rang like thunder. I declare Aurora Reach champion of the 12th eclipse. The galaxy erupted. The noise became physical. Aurora closed her eyes. Champion. This time she felt it. Not as glory. As responsibility. The Emperor waited until the cheers settled. Then two massive holographic planets appeared above the stage. The first shone with golden oceans and bright continents. The second glowed with deep forests, silver rivers, and twin moons. The champion is awarded 2 sovereign worlds. The planets rotated slowly above them, alongside full governance establishment packages for both. The display expanded: administrative fleets, settlement rights, defense infrastructure, agricultural foundations, education systems, medical networks, resource surveys. A beginning, not just planets, civilizations waiting to be shaped. Aurora stared up at them. 2 worlds, 2 chances, 2 futures. The Emperor looked toward her. Champion Aurora Reach, do you accept this prize and the responsibilities it carries? Aurora looked back at her faction. Plum nodded. Ellie smiled. Mira was crying again. Pines gave her the smallest nod. Aurora turned back to the Emperor. I accept. The crowd cheered. Aurora took a breath, then faced the galaxy. Big changes are coming. The words left her before she could overthink them. The crowd roared. Aurora looked back at Sparkle Doom. Her family smiled. She smiled back. For one shining second, everything felt complete. Then the Emperor turned, as if to leave. He took 3 steps, stopped. The entire platform went quiet. Aurora frowned. The Emperor looked back with an expression far too amused for a man supposedly remembering something by accident. Actually. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. There is a second prize. Whispers exploded. Aurora blinked. Kenny looked down. Celine wiped her eyes. Pines smiled into his hand. The Emperor raised his voice. Well, he paused. To a certain family it is a prize. The crowd quieted again. The Emperor turned slowly. His gaze moved past Aurora, past Ellie, past Plum, then stopped. On Mira. You. Mira froze. The entire galaxy seemed to turn toward her. The Emperor pointed. Here. Now. Mira looked at Aurora. Aurora smiled through tears. Mira's lips parted. She didn't understand. Not yet. She stepped forward slowly. The stage felt enormous beneath her feet. Every step echoed. When she reached the Emperor, he looked down at her with unexpected kindness. Kneel. Mira's eyes widened. She obeyed, confused, trembling. The audience began whispering, then 2 figures stepped onto the stage. Kenny Reach, Celine Reach. The whispering became a wave. Recognition spread faster than fire. Mira looked up, saw them, saw Aurora crying, saw Celine smiling, saw Kenny standing like a father trying not to completely fall apart. And finally, slowly, she began to understand. The Emperor drew the ceremonial sword. The blade caught the sunlight. Older viewers recognized it instantly. The same sword used to anoint Kenny Reach. The same sword that had marked the beginning of House Reach's rise. Now it hovered above Mira. The Emperor spoke. Lord Kenny Reach, ruler of Reach and the 9 planets under its command, has petitioned the Imperial Crown for royal adoption. The crowd gasped. Mira stopped breathing. Celine stepped closer. The Emperor continued. Lady Celine Reach has joined this petition. His voice softened. And Aurora Reach, champion of the 12th eclipse, stands in support. Mira's tears fell instantly. The Emperor lowered the sword to her shoulder. Mira Vale. She flinched slightly at the old name. The Emperor noticed, then smiled. For the final time. That broke her. The crowd felt it too. He continued. Do you understand that by accepting this adoption you accept the bloodline, burdens, honors, and responsibilities of House Reach? Mira tried to speak. Couldn't. She nodded. The Emperor waited. Gently. She swallowed. I do. Do you understand that the allies of House Reach become your allies? I do. That the enemies of House Reach become your enemies? I do. That its people become your people? Her voice cracked. I do. That its future becomes your future? I do. The sword shifted to her other shoulder. Do you accept inheritance rights equal to Aurora Reach, each of you to receive half of the future leavings of Kenny and Celine Reach? Mira looked up sharply. Aurora was crying openly now. Kenny nodded once. Celine smiled. Mira could barely breathe. She broke. Aurora stepped closer. Kenny did too. Celine knelt slightly beside her and whispered something too quiet for the crowd to hear. Mira closed her eyes, then looked back to the Emperor. I do. The Emperor smiled. Then by authority of the Imperial Crown, by witness of the Empire, and by the will of House Reach. The sword touched both shoulders. I recognize you as daughter of Kenny and Celine Reach. The crowd rose. I recognize you as sister to Aurora Reach. Aurora covered her mouth. I recognize you as heir of House Reach. Mira sobbed. The Emperor raised the blade. Rise, Mira Reach. For a second, Mira couldn't move. Then Aurora helped her up. Celine embraced her immediately. Kenny joined them. Aurora wrapped herself around them both. The crowd erupted into a celebration louder than the championship declaration itself. Mira Reach, the unwanted daughter of a dying house, the girl forced into the Eclipse, the girl who had survived, the girl who had saved Aurora, now stood as a daughter of one of the most respected dynasties in the galaxy. Pines watched from behind them, eyes wet, smiling. Plum was a complete mess. Ellie wasn't much better. The Emperor allowed the moment to breathe. He had always understood theatre. And this was more than theatre. This was history. Later, when the ceremony finally moved into private celebration halls, the galaxy continued celebrating outside. Inside, away from cameras and crowds, the Reach family finally had space to breathe. Mira sat between Aurora and Celine like if she moved too far, someone might decide it had been a mistake. Kenny noticed. He leaned across the table. You're stuck with us now. Mira laughed through tears. That sounds like a threat. It is. Aurora grinned. Welcome to the family. Plum raised a glass. To Mira Reach. Everyone repeated it. To Mira Reach. Mira cried again. Nobody teased her for it. Much. Eventually, Kenny stood and walked toward Pines. The old Reaper was standing near the balcony looking out over Earth. For a moment, the two men said nothing. They had known each other too long to need beginnings. Celine joined them moments later. Kenny looked at Pines. You brought them home. Pines laughed softly. They brought themselves home. Celine stepped forward and embraced him. Pines froze, then hugged her back. Thank you, she whispered. The old Reaper closed his eyes. There were some things jokes couldn't touch. When Celine stepped back, Kenny held out a long case. Pines frowned. No. Kenny smiled. Yes. No. Absolutely. Pines looked suspicious. Kenny, open it. Pines did. Inside rested the famous telekinetic daggers. Kenny's legendary weapons, the blades that had floated at his command, the blades that had helped forge House Reach, the weapons every child studying the 10th Eclipse knew by sight. Pines stared. Silent. Kenny's voice softened. For protecting my daughter. Then he glanced toward Mira. My daughters. Pines looked up. For once the old Reaper had nothing clever to say. Celine smiled. They belong with someone who still knows what they mean. Pines gently touched the case. The blades responded faintly as though recognizing history passing from one hand to another. I don't know what to say, Kenny grinned. That's new. Pines laughed, then closed the case carefully. Thank you. Kenny nodded. No. His voice became quieter. Thank you. For a moment they were young again. Not rulers, not legends, not survivors. Just friends. Standing in the aftermath of another eclipse. Later, the Emperor found Aurora standing near one of the high windows. The two holographic planets still rotated above the ceremonial hall, untouched, unclaimed in name, waiting. The Emperor approached quietly. There remains one final matter. Aurora looked toward him. The names. She stared up at the planets. The question should have felt impossible. Instead, somehow it felt simple. The Emperor smiled. What shall your worlds be called? Aurora turned back toward the celebration. She looked at Plum, laughing with Mira. Ellie, speaking quietly with Aaron through a private communicator. Pines, pretending not to admire the daggers. Celine, watching her daughters. Kenny, watching all of them. Then Aurora smiled. The first world will be called Everlight. The first planet glowed brighter in the display. Golden oceans shimmered. The name appeared beneath it. Everlight. The Emperor nodded. A strong name. Aurora looked to the second world. This one felt different. Not hers alone, not born from victory. Born from everything that had held them together. She thought of Sparkle Doom, of the Reaper headquarters, of Mira placing the Reach emblem on the floor, of Darius dying beneath the sky, of Pines calling Lyra's old message, of the family that had survived because they refused to break. The second world. Her voice softened. Dot will be called Unity. The second planet shimmered. Unity. The two names appeared together. Everlight. Unity. The Emperor smiled. The galaxy outside continued celebrating. Aurora Reach stood beneath the names of her worlds and finally understood what winning had truly given her. Not power, not ownership, a chance to build something better, a chance to prove the Eclipse did not only create killers. Sometimes it created leaders. And as Earth celebrated beneath the stars, the age of Sparkle Doom truly began.